I'm going to show you how to randomly select a row in your spreadsheet table. This will work in Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets. The formulas are exactly the same. So what are we talking about here? Right here, we've got a table. This is just some random mock data. It's not big. It's 200 rows long. And over here, if you'll see this little checkbox, this guy, when we select it, you'll see some stuff happening over here in columns G through K. So every time I click this, we are getting updated information all throughout all these formulas. So I'm going to go through the pieces one by one to show you exactly how I've stitched this together. If I open this up, this is the actual full formula right here. So I've got an if statement, and then I've got let, I've got rows, filter, row, index, all sorts of stuff in here. It's not really as complicated as it might look, but let's do what we do and go through it one by one. So the first thing we need to understand is RANDBETWEEN and rows. So these are functions built into Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel. RANDBETWEEN will give you a random number between some number. In this case, I'm just saying 1 because that's going to be the first row, and then some other number, which is going to be the number of rows in this customer table. So this right here, this is the name of my table. So that's why we can reference it like this. As I click enter here, it'll give me a random number. And then every time I make a change to the spreadsheet, random is a function that will re-update at every change. So you can do anything to this spreadsheet, and every time you do it, it's going to give a new calculation for that random number. Now, there's a couple other incidentally random generators. You've got rand, rand array, and RANDBETWEEN. So we're just using the random between. Now, the other one I'm using in here is this rows function, which, like I said, gives you the number of rows in the table. So if I just clicked rows, customers, then it's going to say there's 200 rows in that table. Okay, the next piece of our puzzle is index. So what index does is return something at a particular index. So if I click index here, content of a cell specified by row and column offset. What does that mean? Well, I need a reference. In this case, it's customers. And then I need to give it either a row or a column. So if I give it just one, the row, it'll give me that row. And if I give it just a column, then it actually won't give me anything because it'll spill. But if I come over here, you can see it gives me that whole column, all those 200 entries in that column. So what we're doing in our function is we're saying index of customers, and then the index that we're using is the row number 30 in this case. We're generating with that previous formula a random number between 1 and 200, and that's going to be the index that we're returning. And as you can see, it just returns a different row every time we make a change, and that random function regenerates. Moving on, now we're going to use the row singular function. So this is not rows, but it is row. So row is going to return a number. This is going to be very literally the row number. So on row 143 or on row 130, something is occurring. And what we're putting inside here is just an email address. We're using that index and RANDBETWEEN to get an arbitrary thing. In this case, it's the customer email. We could come in here and we could instead say the customer city. It doesn't matter. It's going to just give us the row where that occurs. Do you want weekly tips on how to scale, automate, and grow your business using spreadsheets, automation tools, and AI? GotSheet is my free weekly newsletter that I created for people just like you. Subscribe below, gotsheet.xyz, link is in the description. Next piece, this is the final piece we need. The one at the bottom is just extra. Now we need to filter things. So we've got all the pieces of the pie. Now we need to filter our table by all of the information that we just calculated. So the first thing we're going to do is going to take an arbitrary column. In this case, I'm going to use that email column. And we're going to say row customers email is equal to row index customers email RANDBETWEEN blah, blah, blah. It gets complicated, right? What this is doing is saying, hey, if the row of the customer's email is equal to this randomly generated row number, then we display it. So it's just going in there in the second part of this and picking out a random index number or a random row number by using index, and then it's finding it in the filtering statement here. So there's other ways that are more complicated to do this, but this was the most simplistic way that I could find without using XLOOKUP or nesting a bunch of other functions like isNumber and search within here. This just keeps us doing one thing very well. It's a filter, and then it's grabbing two comparing pieces of information. All right, and if we want to clean this up a little bit more, in our case, it's not going to be any shorter when we write it this way, but the let function right here, this allows us to set a variable. So this rand number is the variable that I'm setting. And this right here is what rand number is going to be equal to. So I'm setting rand num equal to rand between one rows customer. I'm setting it equal to the random number generator, if you will. Then down here in our filter, we're going to go the same deal we just did ahead. We're going to filter the customers. We're going to filter it by whether or not this row at the customer's email is equal to this randomly generated row. And as you can see, we're using right here rand num, which is our variable, instead of using that whole rand between statement written out down there in the row function. A lot of nested stuff. Either way is going to get you to the same point. I like using let when I can, especially when it makes it a little bit more readable. So what we're doing next is simply taking this entire let statement and throwing it within an if statement up here at the top. So I've got if F1, that just means that if this checkbox is checked, then we're going to execute that let statement, that whole thing that we created. And if not, then we're going to have this little click icon. So that's that, and you don't have to have that in there, but I just like to have something that has the satisfaction of a checkbox to execute. I hope this is helpful for you. Check out this video next if it was, and I hope you have a great one.